dark and you're falling asleep, then I'll have to do something to wake you up. Okay, so the material that we're going to be covering, oh yes, and Mr. Amiru, I had a nice white piece of plastic hose for, that's my laser pointer. Somebody stole my laser pointer. The things we'll be covering initially will be very brief history, marketing components. Kenapa? Sebab saya tak suka ajar satu teknologi tanpa ajar dia punya the whole rest of the picture. I don't want to view a component in isolation. I nak tengok component itu and macam mana dia relate dengan semua, termasuk the market and economics run everything. Technologists, engineers, orang macam kita suka teknologi. Kita invent satu benda baru, a DC to DC converter. Wow, it's awesome, it's going to save the world. And tak berjaya. Kenapa? Sebab orang tak mau beli. Sebab harga atau some economic consideration. Oh, and sebab taman seperti mana we have enough. I mean, it seems like they don't like it. It's like, so we will cover a little bit about the history, the market, the components, and economics. Because in the end, economics is what runs everything, not technologies. People don't buy a car because what's in the car. They buy a car based on the price and the performance specs. What's inside, they don't care. We care because we're technologists. Most people are not technologists. There's a special place for electric two-wheelers. So, walaupun bila kita cakap tentang kenderaan elektrik, everybody's thinking Tesla, cars, BYD. Tapi the majority of the electric vehicles in the world, especially in Malaysia, are two-wheelers, really small little scooters. And there's a good reason for that. They actually are economically advantageous even in the current market. So we will be talking a little bit about auxiliary equipment. Termasuk the 12-volt system in the vehicles. Even if it's an electric vehicle, it still has to have windshield wipers and air conditioning. Okay, so we go over that a little bit. We spend a lot of time talking about vehicle dynamics. So when you say want to know more about the fundamentals, okay, the fundamentals of electric vehicles starts with what are the vehicle dynamics. Power, speed, torque, all of that. We need to know that. And then only we can say what motors, controllers, batteries, etc. are going to be appropriate. So we spend a fair amount on that. And after we go over vehicle dynamics, we'll be going over the key technologies, the motors, different kinds of motors, how different kinds of motors are run, advantages and disadvantages of each. We'll be talking about controllers, batteries. There's the number one expense of components in an electric vehicle is the battery. So we need to focus very heavily on the battery. What are the trends, calculations, efficiencies? What about charging and discharging? And also talk a little bit briefly about battery swapping instead of charging. We'll be doing a lot of talking about testing of electric vehicles. How do you confirm the specifications? I have in front of me somewhere specifications of EV components. Piece of paper right here. So I've got a specification for a component, and it claims 85% efficiency. And when we measure the efficiency, we get 45%. Wow. Okay, what does that mean? It means that everybody lies at some time. This is written in Chinese, so it's especially suspect. But Volkswagen, would they lie? Oh yeah. GM, would they lie? Oh yeah. Ford. Oh yeah. The Japanese manufacturers, they all got busted recently for lying. All of them, right? So yes, when a lot of countries, when we're advising countries on their policy towards vehicles, a lot of them say, we don't have our own Syrian or Malaysian Automotive Institute or something like that. we can't do all this testing, so we have to accept manufacturers' specifications. The only problem with that is manufacturers routinely lie, so you always need some way to try to test and verify. So we will be talking about testing verification, and honestly, this is some of the fun stuff. Hybrids, yes, we'll cover hybrids. I know this class is really just on electric vehicles, but hybrids are very popular, and they're basically electric vehicles. Range extenders, we have a segment on EV safety. It's fairly brief. In the end, we're going to sort of summarize the advantages and disadvantages of EVs, hybrid, and combustion vehicles, and sort of hopefully say what's going to happen in the future. There are a lot of demonstrations. There are a lot of components for show. So because I like to keep relatively small groups, so that apabila siapa ada soalan, something is not clear, you just stop and we can straightaway answer questions. So at any point, just stop me if something isn't clear or if you've got a question. And jaga malu. Di Malaysia agak susah nak ajar kursus sebab semua orang malu nak tanya. Overseas orang tak malu. Dekat China mereka tanya. And hampir tak boleh buat the show because tanya banyak soalan. In America Latin, when I'm done and I want to go, they're like, no, they come up and they're asking more and more questions. So we need to be more aggressive, more assertive. And so if something, kalau you ada soalan something not clear, tanya saja. Sebab mesti semua orang keliling pun macam, tak faham. So jangan malu tanya bila-bila saja. So at the universities, oftentimes they have learning outcome objectives, blah blah blah. It's kind of formality. I'm not that fond of it, but what you should get is understanding of speed, torque, power requirements of passenger vehicles. That's vehicle dynamics. Understanding the role of internal combustion engines, AC/DC motors, their torque curves, and how that relates back to the vehicle dynamics. Knowledge fundamentals of the EV components, controllers, motors, etc. Understanding the cost, range, and performance lifespan of EVs, founding on hybrids, etc., and the issues associated with EV batteries and general development trends. And then we're going to have a lot of first-hand stuff you're going to see. A lot of signals and components and how they're running and actual measuring some of the efficiency. So one of my best friends is Mr. Amp-meter. My next best friend, or maybe my first best friend, is Mr. Voltmeter. So volts and currents. Electric power is volts times current. Once I get these two guys, I can start to calculate power. And once I can calculate power, I can calculate efficiencies. And once I calculate efficiencies, I can go back to this manufacturer and say, you're fired because you left. Yes. And we don't just do this with one manufacturer. We do it with all of them. So we know manufacturer A, we get 89% efficiency. Manufacturer B that says 85, no, 45. There's no substitute for experience, right? Itu sebab tu saya selalu marah budak dekat university sebab mereka knowledge tanpa experience. Tak guna. What we need, the reason I like to work with Polytechs is because the knowledge and experience have to come together, right? It's hands-on, you have to use it. So I prefer hiring kids from Polytechs, and I really like working with the Polytechs. So, what do we start with? The #1 EV in Southeast Asia, crummy little scooters, right? 35 kph, maybe 40 kph. Paling murah, 750 ringgit. Shocking, you can get these things. And they're buruk, they're junk. On the other hand, pada makcik dalam kampung, she only goes 500 meters to the wet market and back home. Atau dato nak pergi surau saja. This crummy little scooter is very effective for them. Lead acid batteries, it's like, who uses lead acid batteries? Yeah, some of them still do, and some of them, some of the customers are actually fairly happy with them. This one is a little bit upscale. ZZGZ is a fairly big Chinese manufacturer. I think this unit cost about 1,750 ringgit or something like that. And it will last a reasonable time. Some of them now have lithium-ion batteries and cost 2,000 plus. But typical would be maybe a 48 volt, 20 amp hour battery. Usually 4 lead acid batteries, something a little bit bigger than these. These are lead acid batteries. So this is a 12 volt, 7 amp hour lead acid battery. And we'll talk about lead acid batteries and bundling battery line and the amp hour rating and what it really means.